Today, we are going to be talking about anxiety. Ugh. I suffered with anxiety for about 5 years, I'd say. It got so bad to the point that I wasn't breathing when I was sleeping, and I would wake up feeling completely like out of breath, gasping for air because I just wasn't breathing. And my partner would have to monitor me while I was sleeping to make sure that I was breathing. Um, it also got so bad to the point that I thought that I had iron deficiency. It wasn't iron deficiency. I actually used to fall asleep in class in around year 11 or 12, and I couldn't get to fourth period without falling asleep at least once in class because my brain was just shutting off. I think in combination with the breathing situation, oxygen wasn't reaching my brain. And so I was just hit with these intense waves of lethargia throughout the day. And as a young person, that's totally not normal. But for some reason, the people around me normalized it, saying, oh, it's just iron deficiency. It got so bad that I would just fall asleep or faint anywhere. I went to a school trip to Italy with my class, and I fainted a couple times on my teachers. And now looking back, I know that that was from anxiety. But at that point, I was a workaholic, A+ student, school captain, performing arts captain. I was in charge of a lot of the school activities and events, and did so many after school activities, from swimming, dancing, singing, tutoring, you name it. I was worked out, completely burning out, and I was in denial, I think, of my anxiety. And yeah, and so I'm going to talk you through 5 ways to cure your anxiety on your own without paying for external help, psychologists, any of that, because I know that resources are few and far between these days, especially with the money situation and the way the world is with COVID. A lot of people don't have resources. So I'm going to talk you through 5 ways to cure your own anxiety. And I'm not a professional in the mental health space. I'm not a psychologist. I want to make that very clear. This is all methods that I have learned from my own anecdotal experience and that have helped me tremendously to the point where I am now anxiety free. I can say that I'm a 22-year-old young woman that is very much on top of her mental health. And so this is just stuff that's worked for me. Take it or leave it. But just please know that I'm not a professional. Just have to, put that disclaimer out there before we start. So, curing your own anxiety. How do we do this? There are 2 steps that we have to take. Step number 1 is to find the root cause of your anxiety. And step number 2 is maintaining your mental state so that you can function. But before we do that, I just want to clarify what anxiety is. So there's going to be many definitions of anxiety if you search it up on the interwebs. The definition of anxiety that I will be giving you today is completely different to that you will find on the interwebs. Anxiety is not a bad thing, okay? Anxiety is not a bad thing. It is not something that you should be running away from. Anxiety is actually just a tool. It exists for the sole purpose of telling us when there is something wrong in our minds. Anxiety is to the mind what pain is to the body. Look at it this way. Anxiety is actually not your problem. Anxiety is just the warning bells, the alarm bells that go off because of a deeper rooted problem. Anxiety asks of us not for our condemnation, but for our undivided attention to heal deep parts of ourselves. So I want you to start seeing anxiety as not a bad omen, but as a tool, a mirror, a friend, and an opportunity to improve yourself. So the minute you stop seeing anxiety as your enemy and rather as a gentle friend that is warning you of something that is happening within your mind, is the minute you will be set free. So this is the number one problem. We're running and running and running away from anxiety, and it's not something to be running away from. It is something to be listening to as a warning sign, and it's going to help you figure out what your root problem is, which brings me to my first point that I mentioned earlier. The first step in curing your anxiety is to find the root of your anxiety. So notice, when does your anxiety come up? Is it at work? Is it in social situations? These are all clues that you can start to tally up and find a pattern as to finding your root, right? Within this first step, there are two first methods that I'd like to talk about in terms of finding your root to your anxiety. The first method is dreams. Now, this is going to sound really abstract and hippie hoo-ha. If you are very much non-spiritual, or just you think this is a bit too far-fetched, feel free to skip to the second method, and I will have the links for the time doc in the description of this podcast so that you can do that easily. So the first method is dreams. Dreams are a mirror of our subconscious. And if you can tap into your subconscious, there are going to be all sorts of weird and wonderful clues hidden in metaphorical imagery about your deepest, darkest traumas or your deepest, darkest parts of yourself, core things that make you who you are. So the dreamscapes are perfect representations of your subconscious. And if you can tap into those, you can very easily figure out what the root cause of your anxiety is. This is something that completely changed my life, because I figured out what my anxiety was within the week of me being able to monitor my dreams. How do you monitor your dreams? So the first step within this method is to grab yourself a dream journal. It could even be notes on your phone, doesn't matter. But essentially you want to have something at your bedside table so that when you wake up, you can immediately grab your pen and paper or type out exactly everything that you remember, as much as you can, as in fine detail as you can, of your dreams from the night before. And the idea is, if you continually do this every single day, you'll start to actually remember more and more of your dreams. And because of that, your dreams will start to become more vivid as well as a result of that. For me, my dreamscapes were in my workplace, which I was really shocked. I didn't realize that I was anxious in my workplace, but I actually was. And there was a lot of things that were happening that seemed to be out of my control in these weird dreams, and feeling trapped within my workspace. And I figured out that, all right, this is actually to do with feeling out of control. And that was my root of my anxiety, not feeling in control of my life in general, not feeling in control of my reality. This is actually a key in lucid dreaming. This is what they say to do. You dream journal first. For me, I dream journaled, I think, for maybe 2 weeks until I was able to fully go lucid. And being lucid in a dream means that essentially you're consciously awake within your dream, and you're able to sort of live in your dreams and manipulate your dreamscapes. And so what I would do is, once I became lucid and in control within my dreamscapes, I was able to rewrite scenarios within my dreamscapes in order to kind of overcome my anxiety or fight back these anxious situations that I was dreaming about. But yeah, so just to clarify that step. So step 1 in dreaming, grab a dream journal and write down every single thing you remember from the night before. Do this every single day until you can pinpoint your anxiety. And then the next step would be to, if you want to, this is an optional step, the lucid dreaming part. And this can be really powerful because you can rewrite and remap your realities. And they talk about mapping in NLP. It's essentially like rewriting your reality in a way that puts you in a position of power. So in those anxious dreams that I was having, I would play my character within my dream in a way that said no, or put me in positions where I wasn't the target of all these external factors. It's really hard to explain, but essentially you can manipulate your dreams within a lucid state in order to reflect what you want to get out of it. Turn a negative situation upside down into a positive situation. The sensation of doing that makes you feel really in control. It makes you feel really liberated, and that can be very healing. That was method number 1 for finding your root cause of anxiety. Method number 2 is revisiting your roots. And what I mean by this is revisiting the place that you grew up between ages 0 to 8 and get as close as you can to that. So even if it's just, if you can't get access to that house, then you can just go to the neighborhood, maybe drive to the schools that you went to, the place that you played soccer growing up, and physically being there. Or if you can't physically be there, if you're now living in a different country, then the next best case scenario is to ask your parents if they have any old home video footage of you when you were younger, watching anything that you can find, finding any old pictures, but anything basically you want to get close as possible to reliving your experience from 0 to 8 as physically and viscerally as possible. And the reason we say this is because it's going to help reignite lost memories and lost traumas of when you grew up. Because a lot of the times those kind of micro traumas, it could be just like a passing comment that your parent said that really affected you and now has formed who you are as your core. Those little things, we tend to forget them as we grow older. And in revisiting the place that you grew up, you're going to start to ignite all of these lost memories. And this was revolutionary for me. I did this through Jordan Peterson's self-authoring suite. So essentially, that is a psychologist driven program. You're writing a memoir of your life, and there are specific questions that guide you to do this. And it makes you remember all of these memories about yourself that have massively impacted who you are today. And by doing this, you're going to find the root traumas that shaped who you are today and maybe even shaped your anxiety. And you're going to be surprised with how much that is going to come up that you've forgotten that really stood out as massive life experiences that have really shaped you today. So would recommend that if you don't have access to flying overseas and going to where you actually grew up. So we've just talked about the first step, which is to find the root of your anxiety. And to recap that, there were 2 methods within that point. The first is dreaming and monitoring your dreamscapes in order to see your subconscious and see what kind of clues to the roots of your anxiety are hidden within your subconscious. Number 2 is revisiting your roots, revisiting the place that you lived in childhood, or photos, videos, anything that you can get that reminds you of back then, so that you can reignite memories and find the root of your anxiety. Step 2, maintaining your mental state so that you can function, is the second step in curing your own anxiety. So this is like a maintenance thing. So this should be used at all times whilst you are digging for the root of your anxiety and after you have cured your anxiety even. It's just maintaining your mental state so that you do not get to a point where your anxiety is festering up again. And this is really important because anxiety can be really debilitating. Like, I've had moments where I feel like I can't get out of bed and I can't function, or I take sick days off of work or whatever. And you shouldn't be letting your anxiety do that. So this is why maintaining your mental state so that you are functionable and you can actually live life is important. There are 3 methods underneath this step. So the first method is consistency and security of schedule. The more things that are habitual and you don't need to think of in your life, the more unknown variables you are able to handle on your plate. This is something that I actually learned from psychologist Jordan Peterson. You need to be building schedules and routines throughout your day, morning routine and a night routine especially. Waking up out of bed, making your bed, brushing your teeth, there should be an order that you always go by. It shouldn't be different every day, because the minute it's different is the minute it takes a different amount of momentum and energy, and it shouldn't feel like effort. So brushing your teeth is something that we all do. It should just feel like second nature. And the reason being is we want to conserve our energy, not for these routinely tasks, but for when life throws us curveballs, we need to be able to have enough energy to handle and deal with those curveballs. And when we don't have enough energy is a lot of the times when that manifests as stress and anxiety within our nervous system. So the first thing JP actually says is to get your sleep schedule in check. He says that with any anxious client that he's ever worked with, he asks them, what time do you go to sleep? Do you go to sleep at the same time every day? And most people don't. Even non-anxious people, most people don't. And that's actually a really unhealthy thing to do, because eating, sleeping, and water intake is, and possibly exercise, are the three most important things in having a regulated nervous system and just body system in general. If your body doesn't know or can't rely on you to feed it and rest it and move it at regular times in your life, if your body isn't used to a certain rhythm of eating, sleeping, and moving, then how can you ask it to regulate more complex emotions or difficult to deal with emotions such as anxiety, stress, grief, etc.? So you need to be sleeping at the same time every day. It doesn't matter so much. The research, the data says that it doesn't matter so much what time you wake up. It just matters that you are consistently sleeping at the same time every day, so that when you wake up, your body knows that it has a certain quality of sleep that it's used to, and it's in a circadian rhythm. And then eating. Are you eating at the same times every day? Are you eating a consistent quality of food? Are you drinking the same amount of water every day? And are you moving your body regularly? Does your body know that it's going to move on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for an hour each time from between 12 p.m. to 1 p.m.? If your body can get used to a system, then that means there'll be more energy for the other things in your life that actually need energy, like anxiety and maintaining a headspace. So that's the first thing, consistency and security of schedule. The more things that are habitual, the more unknown variables you are able to handle. The second method under the whole maintaining your mental headspace step is maintaining preventative mental health practices. So this is something that I hone on all the time, because we are always waiting for shit to blow up, excuse my French, to blow up for us to go take a meditation retreat or go to the psychologist, or, it's only when things hit the fan, when our roofs are blown off, that we actually pay attention to our mental health. And we then need like this drastic makeover, this drastic headspace makeover. And it's just not realistic. It's not functionable. And it's just so bad in so many ways. So the idea of preventative mental health is if you can continually look after and maintain a steady headspace, then when life throws you those curveballs, those anxiety triggers, then you are more easily able to handle those curveballs. Preventative mental health practices look like meditating daily, going for walks daily, making sure you're exercising consistently, again, journaling daily. If you're a social person, making sure that you are getting that human connection and social interaction as much as you need, but in a regular sense. And one thing that I think is pivotal and really important for everyone, and something that no one really talks about, is mental headspace check-ins regularly throughout your day. If you cannot answer the question of how am I within 5 seconds of you asking that to yourself at any given point throughout the day, then you are not on top of your mental health. The reason why I say this is because sometimes when you are asked, how are you, by someone, you're really thrown off. Like, you don't know how to answer that. And it takes you a couple seconds to be like, oh, actually, and most of us at that point just kind of say, yeah, I'm fine. How are you? But if you were to answer that question honestly, it would take you a while to really think about it, because you know why? You haven't checked in with yourself. You should know how you're going at every single point in time of the day. Say you have a friend that was just to call you, and this could also be a really good practice, getting your best friend to just call you randomly throughout the day for like a 1-minute phone call to be like, how are you right now? And you have to answer it then and there, honestly, because it takes time to really think, and like, it takes a level of sophisticated thinking and introspection to actually give a detailed and honest response of how you actually are, because there's so many little nuances within our feeling from moment to moment, right? So if you can ask yourself, how am I, at any given point throughout the day, and answer it within 5 seconds, then that means that you are consistently keeping up with your mental health, and you know how you are at any given point because you're consistently keeping up. The third and last method is, what are your practical and physical solutions to the things that are triggering your anxiety? So what problems do you have in life, first of all, that are triggering your anxiety? For example, money. A lot of us have traumas associated with money, right? Like, for example, for me, from a very young age, I think from the way my parents talked about money, and also my first couple jobs in hospitality, I quickly associated money with stress and hard work. And it shouldn't have to be like that way. But I developed a trauma around money that said that I wasn't deserving of money unless I was sacrificing my mental health and being in a stressed state all the time when I'm making money. And so that's a trauma, because it's obviously not true. That's something that is an associative trauma that I've developed over time. That's a root trauma that I will have to go and fix. But at the same time, if my job is stressful, and if my job is constantly triggering my stress and anxiety, then is there a practical and physical way that I can sort of just get rid of that problem? Yes, I could look for a new job, or I could try and figure out my financial situation. So this fifth and last method is really about just nipping it in the bud. What are some practical and physical things that I can do to make my life easier and less prone to triggers of anxiety? What are the problems that I have in my life that can be physically solved? And let's solve them. It's not going to get rid of your root traumas. Like, moving jobs for me, which I did about 3 times, did not get rid of my root trauma. But it will help, because then you can at least move to a job that you feel safer in. And then in that meantime, you can use that extra energy that you're not using on stress to figure out your root causes and traumas. All right, so that is 5 ways to cure your anxiety by yourself. So to recap, there was 2 steps, and within those 2 steps, there were 2 points and 3 points within those steps. The first step was to find the root cause. The first method for that step was dreaming. And the second method for that step was revisiting your roots. And then the second step was maintaining your mental health state so that you can function in everyday life. The 3 methods underneath that was, number 1, consistency and security of schedule, so that you have more energy to deal with unknown variables in your life. The second method was maintaining preventative mental health practices. And number 3 was finding practical and physical solutions to solve the problems that are triggering your anxiety in the meantime. Hope that helps you, and stay tuned for more wellness podcasts.